couple of channels come together.
Ryan is behind the scenes making it happen. I'm going to turn these cameras around one of these days so they can see who Mr. Misto is. You know, Roland Mr. Misto, is that dating us, Keith?
Oh,
yeah.
He's trying to say.
All right. All right, here we go. Hi, I'm Paul with Hyperbaric.Plus up here in 122nd and May in Oklahoma City. And my great friend Keith Bishop with PrevailOverCancer.com is ready to roll.
Yes, we are.
He's got a neat show for us this week. In fact, if you just want to go stand in the sun while we're having this, take your phone out and stand in the sun while Keith's telling you all the good things to do with vitamin D.
That's right, yes.
Nobody really understands the power of vitamin D.
Well, we don't.
Yeah.
And matter of fact, one thing I have to check on is, you know, other animals make vitamin D too, but they have this fur. And it just, how do they make their vitamin D?
I don't know.
I have to check that out.
Yeah, you always come up with more questions than answers when we do this.
Well, I was paying attention to my dog, and so, of course, I've got dogs, cats, and horses, and so they're outside. Now, my dog is more inside, and so, but he loves to go bathe and lay in the sun.
Yep.
And so whether it's, you know, out on the back porch in the sun, when the sun's not on the back porch, he's not happy. And so, but when we let him inside, he's going to be by a window in the sun on that. So sun is extremely critical for us.
Does that dog know that vitamin D is not good coming through the glass?
That's correct.
You need to train him a little better than that.
I need to teach him that. So yes. So yes, we're going to be talking about vitamin D. And so vitamin D.
So we're not doctors.
That's correct. Okay. Yes.
Let's
Disclaimers. Disclaimers.
Yeah,
yes.
disclaimer.
So yeah, we are not medical doctors. We are not your doctor. And so we're going to be sharing information though about vitamin D and the importance of it. And actually, it's not really a vitamin; it's a hormone our body makes. And so, but since this is officially a supplement, it also has not been evaluated by the federal or the FDA, and it's not recognized to treat or cure or diagnose any type of a health condition. So
I like to say this is educational. We want to educate you of questions to ask your doctor. Exactly. So we're just going to open this topic to where you're taking little information in and you write down questions that's for your doctor and let him answer them for you.
Yes, and we have a handout. And so I'm going to be going off of this handout today. The handout is on our websites at hyperbaric.plus and at prevailovercancer.com. On my web page, it is at the bottom of the Learning Center, toward the bottom of the Learning Center. And so a lot of information that we're going to be covering today and even medical journal references, so backing up what we're talking about today. It's also on what page is on your website?
I don't know.
References or something like that.
I don't know.
References or something.
So
okay.
I'll get with Ryan so I can answer that question next week.
Okay.
But the other deal is so important is send us some questions.
Yes.
Keith loves answering questions.
That's correct. So send those questions, and we're going to answer those today. So we're going to talk about 30 minutes or so, and then we'll answer questions. And so I want to start off with, and my specialty now is cancer, but vitamin D is important for many different things. I also help a lot of people with dementia issues. That's my family history issue. And so that's a kind of a specialty and passion I have. But vitamin D is critical for many different health issues. And there's actually going to be, you know, in sign language, 10, okay? But there's going to be 10 things that I'm just going to mention very briefly, not just cancer. And so, but of course, cancer also is related to immune dysfunction. The immune cells have vitamin D receptors on them. And if the vitamin D does not attach to that immune cell, it is not going to be functioning optimally.
Which is why during the virus scare we had a while back, everybody was saying get on vitamin D, and actually
there were studies showing that actually vitamin D injections, those people did better.
Right.
Yeah. So yes, there's
I hope you have a reference for that, or we're going to get booted off YouTube again.
Well, it depends on we didn't say a few key words, so I think we're okay on that.
There you go.
Cardiovascular disease, so heart attacks, strokes, circulation, kidney disease. The blood vessels have, and the heart, everything has a vitamin D receptor. And if it doesn't have that vitamin D attached to it, it is not going to be 100%. And so that's just going to be another factor that we have to, as I say, compensate for. Type 2 diabetes, depression and cognition. There's also called SAD, which is seasonal affective disorder. And I've known people with this, and we tested their vitamin D level in the wintertime when they were depressed. And we gave them vitamin D, and I can't say it cured them, but I mean, they definitely felt better.
Elevated.
And definitely felt better. It was not the only thing, but it's part of that process. Autoimmune diseases, I have a history of that. And so that is an issue for that. Muscle weakness and fatigue, muscle cells, calcium, magnesium, and the vitamin D helps those to work better and helps us absorb those minerals in the body. So extremely critical. Respiratory infections, the lungs actually are a muscle, and they have to have that vitamin D to operate correctly. Not counting the immune system, for the immune
Isn't it
infections.
true that the respirator that they put everybody on was kind of overblown? It's not about putting air in there. It's about supporting what your muscle cannot support.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Isn't that what the respirator is for?
Yes, that's
okay,
correct.
A lot of people think it's so that I get oxygen to my brain, but it's actually
Just helping that muscle function and opening that up and things like that. So exactly. And then also chronic inflammation. So vitamin D has anti-inflammatory results. Matter of fact, I've at a pharmacy that I worked at, I would prepare handouts on a health condition.
Plug them, man, plug them.
And so a Flourish?
Yeah, they're great. I mean, they're awesome. A lot of my clients go up there. They're super
exactly. And here in Oklahoma City, they're great. And so, but I had what I called wellness guides. And every single health condition that I would look up, I would look in the medical journals about vitamin D, and a vitamin D deficiency was a risk factor. Mm-hmm. Every single thing.
Crazy.
So every single cell in our body has a vitamin D receptor. And if vitamin D is not attached to it, it is not going to work as well. So it is very, very important. So I'm going to go back to the first part of this handout. So those are the 10 diseases and health conditions that are related to a vitamin D deficiency. And so what we're going to be going over today is going to be what is vitamin D3. And we did the 10 health conditions. Our body makes it from sunlight. We already talked about that. It's not a vitamin, actually. When they first discovered this back in the 1930s, they thought it was a vitamin, but actually it is really a hormone our body makes. And it's more closely related. Actually, our body uses cholesterol. We have to have cholesterol. The sunlight hits that cholesterol in our skin and makes vitamin D3. And then our kidneys convert that into calcitriol. That's the active vitamin D3. And actually, magnesium and zinc are critical for that too, in case I forget to mention that. So actually, there's all types of things that we have to have ready to go for our body to be able to use vitamin D3. Then, let's see, what else? And at the very end, I'll give you like 7 steps of things that you can do to implement and start trying to figure this out and make changes in your life today. So vitamin D3 is a pro-hormone. It's a chemical our body makes. It's a precursor to calcitriol. And kidney function actually, so this is what's kind of frustrating, but poor kidney function actually creates low vitamin D3, which creates circulation problems, which creates more kidney disease and lower vitamin D3. And so researchers are now realizing that vitamin D3 is extremely important for chronic kidney disease. And so as part of that circulation type issue, once again, every single health condition I've ever come across, low vitamin D3 is a risk factor for it. So, but anyway, calcitriol is the active ingredient, and yes, it is available, but it's hard to find and difficult to prescribe to get that product. But our body can make it, from taking vitamin D3 or getting our sunshine exposure. We're going to talk more about the sunshine exposure. So I'm just going to mention a little bit about how vitamin D3 helps out with cancer, since that's my specialty. And so it helps to stop cancer cell division. It triggers cancer cell death. That's called apoptosis. As a matter of fact, cancer cells actually have more vitamin D3 receptors than normal cells, but it helps cells to be normal and helps cells to, actually some cells are supposed to die. Cancer cells don't like to do that, but vitamin D helps cancer cells to be normal and even kind of convert back into normal, like precancerous and converting back into normal. It helps to block cancer invasion and metastatic activities. It reprograms the cancer genes I'm talking about. The genes and the mitochondria, if they have vitamin D, have a tendency to be more normal and not go into this cancer state. and then it reduces inflammation, suppresses several different categories of these NF-kappa Bs and COX-type chemicals that stimulate cancer growth. And then, I have all the research information on there about this. Actually, so statistically, a 13% reduction in cancer mortality if you have normal vitamin D levels. That's better than a lot of chemotherapy drugs. Okay, so very important. Strong relationship to there's 71 meta-analyses in the medical journals, and that's where they've actually, those 71 studies have studied hundreds of other studies. So this is, actually, I didn't see how many studies, but there are probably thousands of studies about vitamin D in cancer. So each 8-unit increase in vitamin D3 blood level reduces the risk of cancer by 7%.
Wow.
So if you're at a 20, and you increase that by, to up to 28, you have a 7% reduced risk of cancer. Let's see, let me get this right. Yeah, cancer risk. That's not counting some mortality type issues. So, but it helps the immune system to function better. So several different functions throughout the body. Okay, so one thing I keep coming across, people are saying, well, I'm out in the sunshine, and so I get my sunshine, and how much sunshine does it take? And so I'll tell people and try to visualize this, and that may be good or bad, depends on our body type and our perception of things. But if you're out in your bikini or your Speedo swimsuit, actually vision me, okay, out in my Speedo swimsuit.
No, don't do that to him.
this time of year, actually, so this is in March, and we're at 35.5 latitude, something like that here in Oklahoma City. And right at that point, there's no way I can get enough vitamin D if I was outside for over an hour in my Speedo swimsuit. This time of year, midday sun, I'm not going to get my vitamin D. It's not going to work.
Today you're going to freeze.
Yeah, it's 40 degrees, 40 degrees this morning. So, but even if it's 81 degrees, I'm still, matter of fact, my skin is not going to turn red. I'm not going to get sunburned because the sun is still just not at the right, spot. So in the summertime, actually, if being actually light-colored eyes and light-colored skin, if I had shorts on, we'll skip the Speedo vision, and so visual. If I was in my shorts, and 30 minutes, my body is going to make, and let me make sure I get this statistic right. Yes. So in 30 minutes, midday sun in the summertime, I'm going to make 10,000 to 25,000 IUs of D3. Mm-hmm. That is a lot. But that gives you an idea about how much we probably should be taking.
And it's probably crazy that if that was your first time in the sun, you could get sunburned.
I definitely could. Mm-hmm.
So you want to work up to that. That's not you run out today and
yes.
Keith told me to stand out here for 30 minutes.
That's correct. So, and there's other things you can do for that too. Matter of fact, now I won't burn because I get enough polyphenols. Mm-hmm. And so in my supplements and my green tea and my coffee will help repair my body. And actually, I don't burn anymore. I used to. Matter of fact, I do. Matter of fact, I do have a history of basal cell carcinoma on my back, and from inappropriate sunshine exposure.
Mm-hmm. As a kid, I got burned all the time
using baby oil. Trying to get that suntan and laying out there. And that created a lot of damage over the years whenever I did not have the right type of internal protection from polyphenols and antioxidants to repair that damage. So I've had some nasty burns, and so that increased my risk and allowed that to happen.
What are some of the melatonins? What are some of the supplements on top of polyphenols that people take to guard against that?
So vitamin C,
okay,
green tea, even black tea. Matter of fact, when I was in college, once again, I still didn't know enough, but we were outside marching band, summertime in September, without shirts on and got sunburned. Terrible, because we're outside, we're rehearsing for hours out in the sunshine. And that time of year, it's getting cooler, so it's like, we can do this and things like that. Well, some of the people got sunburned with blisters. We actually took tea, and we even knew that in the 70s. You could take tea
bags.
bags, and we just put tea and then wash rags in that tea and put that in, and it's remarkable the improvement on the sunburn from that. The antioxidant, the catechins, e.g. CG and things like that from even black tea helped. So any dark colored fruit or vegetable is going to provide the antioxidants, or herbs and spices are going to help provide those things to help out with that.
Now, for all of you Alabamans out there, that's not sweet tea.
Oh, no.
That is no sugar. That's
right.
not sweet tea. That's black tea without any sugar in it.
Southern
Well, I'm
U.S.
telling you.
sweet tea is not going to work, on that. So, but anyway, so antioxidants do help reduce that risk of the sunburn, and that's important. It really is, and so that's where the sun literally can damage the skin, but it's if we have the antioxidants, it's not going to happen as bad. So I actually learned that many years ago, and so I do wear a long sleeve shirt if I'm going to be outside for hours and hours and hours. I do want to be cautious and careful, but I'm outside all the time now, all day long, and I don't use sunscreen because I do want my vitamin D. I do want those chemicals that our body makes. So,
and really, even if you're wearing I think white's reflective. You don't want to wear black because you'll die in the summertime. But to wear clothing that is long sleeve to protect at some level, that sun, you're getting vitamin D through your clothing.
You do get it through your clothing, right?
Not at the highest level, but you don't want to get burned.
It's kind of like the window thing.
Exactly.
The sunlight will go through, so clothing can help filter that and reduce that. That's correct. So yes, we still can get it. And matter of fact, I don't wear a hat unless I'm just outside once again for over an hour. And when you have light colored eyes, and so do I, so we're at a greater risk of burning very quickly and easily. So now the darker your skin and darker eyes have a tendency to give you more protection. But that means you have to be outside longer. So for me, 30 minutes, I got my vitamin D. For a person with medium skin, and so my wife is kind of between medium and olive, darker skin. She has a little bit of Native American in her. And so she actually, at 30 minutes, her body's just going to make 3,000 to 8,000 units in 30 minutes. And then a person that has the darkest color skin, like an African descent, Native American, dark Native American, is only going to make 200 to 2,000 IUs. So, and this is not being racial at all. It's just, but the darker your skin, the more time you have to be outside to make your vitamin D. Matter of fact, you think of this, and so Native American and African American and African, and a lot of cultures that are actually outside for hours and hours and hours, most of their life, they have a tendency to have darker skin. God actually provided them with that ability to protect them, actually, so they don't burn. So that person can be outside for hours and hours and hours and not burn, versus pale face is going to have a problem.
This is all coming back to me. I had a client that I sent to you that had kidney issues, severe kidney issues, and you called me and said, Paul, I haven't met these guys face to face yet. I'm looking at their blood work, and without vitamin levels, just their blood work. And your question was, do they happen to be dark skin? And I said, Morocco. And the whole family, they were from Morocco. And this person was not they had no vitamin D levels when they finally got tested. And they were 3 years into a chronic kidney disease.
Right.
Have you talked to him at all? I'm just kind of curious if that resolved. Or
I haven't heard anything.
You haven't? So, but I remember all you looked at was their blood work, and you called me up and said, I haven't met them. Are they dark skin? Well, they need to be standing in the sun.
Right.
Number one, because I still haven't got their levels back. And sure enough, when you finally got them, they had zero vitamin D.
As a matter of fact, that's common. I see that all the time. Matter of fact, over 40% of the people in the United States are low in vitamin D. And so, which is pretty significant.
And the darker your skin, the darker your eyes, just load
more,
up.
actually, a greater likelihood. Matter of fact, there's actually even athletes. So if you want to improve your performance, you got to make sure you have your vitamin D on board. I had one client that came to see me. He was a football player, a professional football player, and he kept getting injured. And so last time he got injured was he's actually a receiver, and he dove to catch the ball, and he pulled several muscles in his body, and he was out. That was it, for the rest of the season. And so he came to see me, and we did his vitamin D level, and I think his vitamin D was like a 3 or a 6.
And it needs to be.
Well, 30 is low.
Okay.
And so 80 is more optimal. And then also I did another study, and I found out that he had a lot of oxidative damage, so he was not getting enough fruits and vegetables, and were not absorbing them. So actually, we just did 2 things: got his vitamin D level up and his antioxidants. And the next season, he was ready to go, and he was successful, and not getting injured. And so vitamin D is critical for even athletics. So the darker your skin, the more urgent maybe to get tested, but everybody needs to get tested. But it's just more like you need to be tested if you're not outside in the sunshine. So it's very important, and depends on the time of the year and what part of the world you're from. So I'm talking about winter in North America, and I have a lot of clients from Australia, and they're the opposite season. And so they're actually now going into what we'd call fall as we're going into spring. And so they've had their vitamin D for the year, and now they're going to be starting to have more and more problems. And your vitamin D level will change throughout the year. I do recommend testing that primarily in the winter time, so you can see how low it's going to get. So you know how much you need to be supporting with that, with your supplements. Okay, and then so cofactors, essential cofactors for vitamin D3 includes magnesium. So magnesium is required to convert the vitamin D3 that we take as a supplement or that our body makes, to convert it into calcitriol. We have to have that magnesium. And how many people are deficient in magnesium? Most people. And so we're not getting enough.
So what was it in our diet that we used to get all the magnesium we needed that has been depleted or that we're not eating? I'm just curious. If we have good food,
right,
what would be the magnesium foods that we used to eat?
Probably actually more like meat,
okay,
bones, bone broth,
okay,
and things like that. So the bones are our warehouse,
okay,
storehouse. I mean, they're storing those minerals. And, man used to take the animal and they would eat the meat and then stew the bones and drink that broth. And that's the primary source of it.
Which that's how you're extracting the bone marrow, which is going to be rich in, I assume, in magnesium.
So, there are some other animals that have some sources of that. And I'm going to talk about that in just a moment, but the sources are not great.
And then when you say to bump unless you're getting in that in a minute, all magnesium is not the same. There's a specific magnesium we need to key in on.
Yes, and so magnesium does require stomach acid to be absorbed. So if you have low stomach acid, that creates a problem. And then magnesium glycinate is the easiest, and threonate are the easiest to be absorbed. Magnesium citrate is okay. But we're actually in magnesium citrate and all others actually we're using to help people to have looser stools and more of a easier bowel movement, or to help relieve constipation. So magnesium glycinate and threonate are the best absorbed. Do not require as much stomach acid on that. So vitamin D is critical. Vitamin K2, especially MK7, is a longer half-life. It stays in the body longer. So vitamin D physically, actually, we call it a chelator, but physically, vitamin D attaches to calcium in the stomach and intestines and takes it into the body. So we have to have that vitamin D there to do that. And then the vitamin K2 attaches to that calcium and takes it into the bones and stimulates bone growth. So vitamin K2 is extremely critical. Now, vitamin K2, so far as I know, doesn't actually help with the absorption of D3, but it helps with the proper processing of the minerals. And so it's not just calcium, but it gets it into the bones. And also that K2 helps pull plaque, calcium that could be stuck in the plaque, pull that out, and then moves it into the bones. So vitamin K2 also helps reduce that plaque buildup, arteriosclerosis inside the blood vessels throughout the body. And then zinc is also, I did not know this. I love.
Hey, write this down.
I love learning. I learn every single day. And so I learned this as I was preparing this handout. Vitamin D is required for the vitamin D receptor to work. So this vitamin D receptor, kind of picture this. This is a cell in our body. There's the vitamin D. And so the vitamin D receptor, vitamin D attaches to that receptor, but now we have to have zinc on board for that receptor to work right to deliver it into the body, into the cell rather, for it to work. So, but zinc is critical. I did not know that. Zinc's critical for over 300 different processes in the body, including insulin to work right. So vitamin D and zinc and vitamin D, I did not know that. So I'm gonna make a post about that because zinc deficiency, 3/4 of the people that I test, actually more than that, are deficient in zinc.
The first time I met you, when you were at Flourish, you gave us the zinc
Taste
test,
test.
and just a little component. Is that zinc that's actually in
That's
there?
zinc. That's a zinc solution.
So
yes.
you take that zinc solution, and depending on what your taste buds are telling you is what your zinc levels are. And I mean, it's like $5 to go find out, am I good in zinc? And obviously you can do blood work and get a little closer understanding, but how simple is that to manage our zinc levels?
To get an idea.
Yeah.
Exactly. So so that zinc solution should taste bad. So I have information on my website about that, too, about how to do that zinc taste test. And Flourish has that little sample thing available too. And then omega-3 fatty acids also, they work along with vitamin D. I can't say that it actually is required for it to work, but they work along with it as an anti-inflammatory. And so although every single cell in our body, the cell wall, I'll hide my face, but every single cell wall in our body, this is called a phospholipid bilayer. Those phospholipids, that means fats, are EPA and DHA. That's fish oil, omega-3 fatty acids, okay? And so therefore, now that receptor is going to be more flexible and work better. So indirectly, it's going to help. Matter of fact, the brain is more than half fat, and so we have to have that in our brain for the brain to operate correctly.
You're making my wife's case.
Making her case.
Yeah,
Okay.
that my brain's half fat. I'm just going there.
I missed that one. Okay, I missed that one. So, okay, so let's see. By the way, turn in your questions so that we can go over that, and we'll answer questions in just a few minutes. And then, matter of fact, at the table you all have, if you all have questions, be sure to let me know too, so you can raise your hand. Raise your hand if you have a question, and so we'll try to catch that too. Okay, so optimal blood levels. Now, this information is for the U.S., the United States. Other countries have a little different type of a number that they look at. So you will need to evaluate that number with your country that you're in. But in the United States, a level less than 20 is considered to be deficient. A level of 20 to 29 is insufficient. A level of 30 is considered to be sufficient. That means that you barely have enough to function. And then 40 to 60 is optimal, and that's kind of like a typical target range. Often in a health challenge, especially in a cancer-type challenge, we're going to be pushing harder and trying to get more like a 60 to 100. Over 100, we start running the risk of some actually absorbing calcium so well from our foods that we may even have too much calcium floating around. And if we don't have enough K2, that calcium will have a tendency to get stuck inside the blood vessels, the atherosclerosis, hard plaque. And that's that heart scan. They do the heart scan and they have that calcium score. That's what we're talking about. And so, but the K2 works to help pull that calcium out of the blood vessels and moves it into the bones. So those are the kind of the ranges for that.
I had a gal whose son had a concussion injury, and they went to a clinic up in Detroit, up in Dearborn, and I always regarded this clinic as very high level, and they put this young man on 50,000 units of vitamin D, and it created all kinds of mental issues.
You could get too much. That is correct.
Yeah, it created mental issues that the only thing that we talked about, it was that high level of vitamin D that was not helping his concussion. It was actually hurting him mentally.
And I'm not familiar with exactly what would cause that, but it may contribute to some atherosclerosis plaque buildup.
Okay.
So that
would
decreased
really
circulation.
Be careful. You don't want to overdo vitamin D.
Correct.
So
and that's correct. And so, but you have to assess and don't guess.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're going to miss out, and you're going to have the wrong amount of vitamin D on board. So look and see if anybody has any questions yet. Yes.
Do you have a brand you suggest?
A brand of D. And so I'm glad you brought that up. So, there's actually probably many great brands. And so I do lean toward getting ones that are from health food stores and from compounding pharmacies. And so the health food stores are going to have, and the pharmacies are going to have a little bit higher quality or professional, we call it professional brands that maybe even doctors carry. Vitamin D is actually a hormone, and it's actually sensitive to heat. And so the manufacturing process can damage it, or transportation or sitting on the shelf, it's going to go bad with time. So buying a vitamin D supplement that is close to expired, probably not a great idea. Actually, there's many good brands, and so I'm not going to really pull out one particular one because there's many great ones. But it does not have to be a liquid. It does not have to be a soft gel capsule or a vitamin D that's dissolved into the capsule or the oil. Does not have to be that. Actually, I've seen dry capsule forms work just as good as soft gels and liquids. So, but you have to make sure. And so actually, this is also a fat stored hormone. So whenever you make a change, so like even if you were outside for that 30 minutes in the sunshine in the summertime, you got your vitamin D3, but that's just one day. And it's going to be actually used, it's going to be stored in fat cells, and then it's going to be used, meaning when it attaches to a cell and it goes through a process, it's gone now. It's a nutrient, and our body will burn through it. So we have to get enough of it on a regular basis. It has to be absorbed, and so typically taking it more with a fatty meal. And then, time of day, I do like to recommend taking it in the morning or at noon, because this is something that our body makes from sunshine exposure. And there's some theories that it may even help out with sleep. If you get it during the daytime, it may help with the circadian rhythm and going to sleep at night. So taking it at night is probably not a great idea. I don't know if it would impact sleep that much or not, but it's more of a daytime type chemical.
So Keith, let me answer his question my way.
Okay.
When you're in Oklahoma City, you're my client, and you ask that question.
Yes.
I go, don't go to your
Discount,
big box stores.
Don't go to a discount store.
But
Yes.
Flourish knows all of the quality
they do have
brands,
some
and
good-
that is all they sell.
Yes.
And I use them as my scrubber.
Okay.
I use them to know that I'm not buying the stuff at Walmart.
Right.
Because you can't learn all these different brands and all these different vitamins. And that's why I go someplace that I know what they tell me.
Yeah.
And it's going to cost me more than it does at Walmart.
Right.
But what's that value? So here we got.
Oh, yeah, exactly. There's a sack. There we go.
So Nate's got some
what'd
liquid
you get?
vitamin D
You got your,
from Flourish.
oh, yeah, you got your D. Okay.
Yeah. So anyway.
There you go. Thank you. Thank
But
you,
that's
Nate.
the easiest way to answer that question, because
Yeah.
there's so much to know, and
Right.
I'm not going to know
Well, and
that.
so the discount stores are a problem.
Yeah,
Okay. There you get what you pay for, and this is actually not a vitamin. This is not a mineral that can sit for years. This is a hormone, and so I've seen the same thing happen with melatonin, a hormone our body makes. Melatonin supplements can make a difference too. I do not recommend going to a discount store to get that. So,
I got a question.
yes, question.
Thanks for the great info, guys. My question is, out of what I would determine are the 4 different ways to take vitamin D is one more effective? Because every time I've taken it, and I've tried different ways, I really haven't felt any boost. So should I? But my main question is between injectables, sublingual, supplements, and then powder water soluble, is any of those more beneficial than the others that I would expect to feel the results of?
So yes, yeah, I'm glad you.
Tony, help them find a seat right
A
behind you.
great-
And offer them a chair.
Yeah, thank you. Great question. And so actually, vitamin D deficiency, you're not going to really feel it, that I can say. I mean, although indirectly, yes, like one client with this SAD, seasonal affective disorder, after about a month, he could feel a little better. But usually it's not something that you're going to notice right away, because actually it takes time. You have to supplement it. It takes time. It's gradual. And it's so slow that most people won't feel that. Although, once again, it actually helps you absorb your minerals. So calcium, magnesium, potassium, we have to have it to absorb these minerals for our muscles to work. But it's a very gradual type thing. And then the absorption, once again, it can either be a dry powder capsule or a soft gel, it doesn't make a difference. But I've not seen, well, many years ago when we first started learning about vitamin D and started testing for it, companies were saying that it needed to be a oil-based product. Well, it doesn't. So they actually, even that supplement company, they were promoting that and saying that it required that. But then I said, well, okay, where's your research showing it? They didn't have any research. They were just saying that. And so, you can get it absorbed, but what's important is that it takes time to know. So you make a change. So whether it's going to be your supplement or your sunshine exposure, and you have to test again and it depends actually how much body fat you have. And so a person that has very little body fat, that's really lean, they can see a change in their vitamin D level, if they're extremely lean, within a month. If a person has a lot of body fat, it could take 6 months before they can see finally and hit a new plateau level. So the more body fat you have, actually, the more vitamin D you have to take for a while. Matter of fact, we're trying to figure this out back in the, almost 30 years ago when we started, dosing this and doing blood tests. Matter of fact, blood tests at that time were like $120. Now it's $40. So
for vitamin testing?
Vitamin D test.
Is that right?
Yeah, it's like $40 for a vitamin D3 blood test now. If you go through your doctor's office, they're going to charge more. Actually, they're going to bill the insurance companies more than that.
Yeah.
But so it's not expensive, but you have to wait about 3 months to do a blood test after you've made a change.
Okay.
And so that's what you have to do. So, it's kind of stick with, one brand and see. Matter of fact, another person, I think he's already left, and we're following him, and actually his vitamin D level was low. And he was actually getting a discount store one. And so I said, well, that you're wasting your money, get another one. Well, so he got another one, and it was a little better, but not a lot. So that wasn't his deal. His body's just burning through it. And he's actually extremely lean and very fit. But something about his body, he's actually burning through it or not absorbing it. So I don't have an easy answer on that. It doesn't have to be sublingual, but it doesn't have to be oils. But we do need to get, take a dose with a meal, with fats to maybe increase the absorption of it. And then but we have to follow up with that test and have to be consistent even with our sunshine exposure on that. So order your blood test. So kind of a summary on this, and we're going to go to the Q&A. So order your blood test through your doctor's office. It is an inexpensive test. Any doctor can do it, and it depends on where you live as to how easy that is going to be to get it. Know your number. Once again, kind of a mid-range in between that 30 to 100. I like at least 60. I'll push it higher for some people. Choose vitamin D3, not vitamin D2. So milk and some products and some foods, they add actually vitamin D2, which is a plant D, that our body has to convert over into D3, and it's hard to do. And so vitamin D2 doesn't count for anything. It's not active in the mammal body. It is a plant product. So the D2 that's in dairy products doesn't count. Add magnesium in, and so often magnesium glycinate, like 200 milligrams twice a day, is pretty common. This is also in the handout that's on our websites at the bottom of the Learning Center on my webpage. And then vitamin K2, I do like to go with about 180 micrograms. Sorry about that noise. So they're pressuring up the tank for getting ready for the tank for the next dive. And so the vitamin K2, I do like to go with actually for an average adult, like 180 micrograms a day. And I go higher than that. But that's kind of a starting point. We're learning that we probably need more vitamin K2 than what we thought that we needed, like D3. We need more. And then repeat the test in, a minimum of a couple of months, or 2 or 3 months. It's time to assess again, adjust the dose. Matter of fact, I do like to test definitely in the winter, but also if you are outside and you're taking your vitamin D3, it's good to find out, are you getting too much? So summertime, it's not like you need to do this every year. After a couple of years, you're going to get a good idea of what you need to do. Unless
journal it,
unless you make a change on your supplement. If you go with a different brand, you're going to have to assess that again. And then maintain your level. So once again, you have to test this every once in a while just to kind of make sure. So any other questions from our table? If y'all have any questions, let me know as we're going through these questions. What is the best non-sun, non-supplement for vitamin D3? I'm glad they mentioned that. Let's see if I had the information about, let's see here. If I had the information about the foods. Actually, I think I crossed out the foods because foods aren't reliable. Even the best foods are only going to provide maybe 20 or 30 units in a serving. So it really doesn't count much. But sardines are going to have some. Eggs are going to have some. So a lot of animal products are going to have some. I don't think I put that on this list. I just took it off because it was like not very much. So really it has to be either sunshine exposure, and matter of fact, if it's wintertime and your face is exposed, that's actually why God, made a northern latitude people often have lighter color skin to maximize that exposure. But even that's not enough. And so having your head out in the sunshine in the wintertime takes hours to make your vitamin D, for that. So that's really not an easy question on that. It has to be either sunshine exposure or supplement to get your vitamin D3. When we hear about nutrients like vitamin D influencing cancer, biology, immunity, and the microbiome, which it does, I'm glad you mentioned that. What do you think about people who misunderstood the most about how nutrition and lifestyle actually affect long-term health? So what do you think people misunderstood the most about how nutrition and lifestyle actually affect long-term? So nutrition, matter of fact, so when I started studying, I made the switch from pharmacy and trying to figure out what do I need to do to keep from having the problems that my family, my parents and grandparents were having. And I realized it was nutrition and lifestyle choices, and literally God led me to a point where he provided somebody that bought my pharmacy so I could make that change and get out of that situation. So what do I think that most people most misunderstand about that? I think is that, that we can always get enough from our food. Sometimes we have to have help with that, but we're also eating incorrect food. We're eating processed food rather than single ingredient. We're talking about that in this chamber session we had earlier. We have to have single ingredient food and more natural, more normal foods and not processed foods. The fried hamburger and French fries and soda pop kind of things are not what we need. And that's creating a major problem. Thank you for this information. Why don't oncologists advise patients to take vitamin C IV or supplement? They also don't talk about types of foods to eat or heal. Well, and I'm not going to I'm not trying to make an excuse for them, but oncologists are like the rest of us. They only have so much time and so much knowledge, and unless they have a particular interest to make a change, they're not going to do that. Matter of fact, I was actually at the Annie Appleseed Conference, plug for them, and a couple of weeks ago, and actually a fourth of the attendees were actually healthcare practitioners, and several were new practitioners, I say new to oncology, that were transitioning from traditional medicine. So it's happening, but they have to have an interest to do that. If they don't have the interest or the time, they're just not going to make that change. And also, if they do make a recommendation that is outside what the federal government recommends as a treatment protocol and something goes wrong, they could be held liable for it. So, matter of fact, many years ago, there's
Excuse me.
Thanks. Get it fixed.
I got a part I got to replace later today.
Yeah, there was a doctor's doctor here in town in Oklahoma City, and an internist that the doctors would go to when they had a problem. And so this was almost 30 years ago, and I had a patient with cancer, and I sent them back to this internist to get a vitamin D3 blood test. And the doctor said, "Well, who told you need that?" And he said, "Well, I saw Keith Bishop." And he says, "Oh, yeah, he's the witch doctor. I'm not going to do that." Well, a few years later, he's testing every single patient for vitamin D3. He didn't know.
Isn't that crazy how the medical community just absolutely did not recognize
Right.
vitamin D?
They did not. And so, and matter of fact, even I had a friend with type 1 diabetes and kidney disease. And I recommended that he take some vitamin D, but to go ahead and check with his doctors, and they said, "No, do not take that." Now they actually test for it and recommend it.
Foundational.
And it is part of the protocol. but they just didn't know. As a matter of fact, I actually gave him like 20 different research articles to give to his doctor. And the doctor said, no, we're not going to do it. It's not part of the protocol. So, but anyway, it's kind of a CYA. So, cover your, and just to make sure that they don't get sued is part of it on that. Great question. In your experience, are most people actually deficient in vitamin D without realizing it? Yes. Matter of fact, I rarely find somebody that is in the optimal range. It is extremely rare.
Again, there are several labs around in Oklahoma. It's different around the country. There's a couple of states that don't recognize it, but in Oklahoma, call around to some of the labs. You can look up blood labs, and if you're stepping outside of your insurance, call around to a couple of labs and find the $40 lab test.
Yeah.
And go get tested. I mean, Keith's main line, assess, don't guess. I mean,
exactly.
It's just crazy.
Yeah. And so very important. So next question, what do you think people misunderstand the most about how nutrients like vitamin D influence long-term health? That number one, they don't know it's a problem. So we're inside, we have these artificial lights, and we're not outside working like God intended. So we're inside an artificial environment, so we're not getting our vitamin D. So number one, we're low. Number two is just not knowing, and being kind of like that, the doctors that we were just talking about, they don't know, but not willing to accept and make that change. And then I think also, I don't want to mislead anybody either. So to start taking vitamin D is not going to be an instant heal. I mean, you're not going to be healed. And so this is a chronic, long-term, decades of health issues going on. So this is very important. So those of you with children, you do want them playing outside. Matter of fact, that we did that. I mean, matter of fact, my mother kicked us outside, and we didn't go inside until supper time, and then we go back out again. And so in the summertime, so we were outside, actually with our shorts on continuously in the summertime. And that's the way God intended it to be. So,
Keith, we're getting pushed up to an hour.
Oh, yes,
and
we are.
I know that you answer these questions that we don't get to. Is there one last one there you want to cover
Let's
before
see,
we close her down?
Okay, do you think vitamin D3 could be one of the hidden drivers behind so many chronic health issues today? Definitely. Matter of fact, it is a factor behind almost every single health concern I find. I always check vitamin D3 levels, and I'm always correcting for that, and whether it be sunshine exposure. And matter of fact, that reminds me, I have to tell another quick little story. As a child, my sister had eczema, and I remember every summer we were outside playing without much clothes on. Her skin cleared up. Every winter, she got worse. And so the doctors did realize that something about the sunshine, they didn't know what it was, helped. So what do? Sun lamps.
Is that right? Yeah.
I remember sitting in the bed with my sister, under that sun lamp, because it helped her skin, her eczema, which is an autoimmune disorder.
So if you look up red light therapy, which we have red light panels here, and one of the first things that it addresses is skin issues.
Yeah, exactly.
Eczema being the biggest one.
Yeah, exactly. So we have to have that. So once again, I think it is extremely important. I apologize for not going over this earlier. So we've been doing this for quite some time. And I forget about it because actually it's just because I always do it, always talk about it, but I forgot to bring it up as a topic. Actually, one of my clients suggested that I bring this up and talk about it.
Well, I'm glad you did, because when you walked in today, you went, I've never talked about vitamin D. We're going to talk about vitamin D.
I can't believe that. It's so important.
Well, that's awesome, and I appreciate you being here. Your wealth of knowledge. We beat him up all the time in the chamber. He dives with us at 10 o'clock, and I tell all my clients that he's locked up. He cannot get out, so we can just hammer him with questions, and we have a blast in there, and we learn a lot.
Oh, by the way, we don't actually dive. So we pressure. We are in a pressure chamber.
That's that slang word I use that I get in trouble for.
That's right. Yeah. So we don't actually dive.
I love when people say, "Do I bring a swimsuit?" And I say, "Yeah, and a beach towel." And so, anyway, no, we don't get wet. We're just creating pressure in that chamber.
Exactly.
Well, Keith with PrevailOverCancer.com
and hyperbaric.plus
and Paul at hyperbaric.plus. My clients will tell you what they learn in the chamber is well worth the cost that they pay to get in there because everybody learns. And one thing, before my compressor popped off, one thing I did want to say that is so important is went right past me again, and it was really important. And I just remembered it when I sat down. But
We'll talk about dementia next week.
yeah, well, get in the chamber. Everybody around here tells me to get in the chamber. But no, there's so much going through my mind while you're talking. There's so many questions.
Right, yeah.
I know there's questions over there that you all write them down too. We'll hand them to Keith to answer.
Yes.
But anyway, thank you for being here. It's always an education. And you'll be here next week. I think
Yes.
the week after you're going to be absent.
Yes.
So thanks again for being here, Keith. And you always
Very
like
good.
to fist bump at
That's
the
right.
end.
That's
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. See y'all next week. Yay. Thank you all for hanging out there and listening for a minute. All right. Thank you, Ryan. You do a great job. Well, when I review this, I'll tell you if you did a great job.